they were a blessing to President Moi because they were now courageous, brave to say Kanuju.
Jirongo, in terms of leadership, in terms of making snap decisions, that was the guy.
There was nothing peculiar about Sam Nyamweya. It is only that he was a shrewd person.
Ruto was a very straight person, very background person, until maybe towards the end of YK that he started coming up.
More than 2 decades later, YK92 remains a thrilling topic, especially for Kenyans old enough to remember the once famous political initials.
Sena mbili nilikuwa ndio nimemaliza tu shule na kukawa na kitu ambayo ilikuwa inaitwa YK92.
Ni kundi ambalo lilikuja kumaliza uchumi wa Kenya. Nakumbuka wakati huo uchumi wa Kenya ulikuja ukaanguka.
Because pesa zilikuwa zinatengenezwa kiholela. Hiyo ndio wakati tulikuwa na Jirongo. Ile note inaitwa 500 ambayo Jirongo alikuwa anaenda anatengeneza, anakuja anagawa pesa.
Vijana wanaenda huko scrambling for money. But hiyo scrambling for money walitumia kama ati sasa vijana tuko na sisi, sasa kura tumepata mingi. It was also a rigging strategy.
Ni campaign ambayo ilitumia vijana kwa njia mbaya.
So it is a study case that people should pay attention to, but not to replicate.
1992 was a consequential year for Kenya. An economy in turmoil, runaway corruption, and a poisoned political climate characterized by assassinations and regular public protests. A resurgent opposition bolstered by brave clergymen and a militant civil society had just managed to push for the reintroduction of multiparty democracy.
Tawala Kenya, tawala, tawala Kenya, tawala.
The ruling party KANU and its leader, the then President Daniel Arap Moi, was besieged with the prospect of losing the general election looking real by the day. It was against this backdrop that a group of youthful associates met over a drink and an idea was born. It was on the 5th of January 1992 that 5 friends met at Nairobi's Boulevard Hotel for a drink. In attendance, Fred Kiptanui, Sami Kogo, Victor Kebenei, Joe Mwangale and Joe Kim Kung, a close confidant of President Moi's son, Gideon Moi. The drink would later turn out the political equivalent of a life-saving drip. On December 3rd, 1991, a month to this meeting, President Moi had transformed the political scene by consenting to a repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution, opening the space for creation of alternative political parties.
Kitu mimi nauliza nyinyi leo, ili tuone hawa walio katika siasa, wale walio watumishi wa serikali, sisi tuseme kwamba tufungue, tuondoe ile section ya katiba ya Kenya ya 2A.
Multiparty was back, and for the first time since independence, KANU was facing a real battle for survival.
His was also only just one vote. He needed all the votes, which now were open to taking by other parties. So now the remaining party, which was still in power, had to pull itself together and brave for the coming competition.
Siasa ni mashindano. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa mashindano kiasi kukubalia iingie.
The first opposition party, the Forum for Restoration of Democracy, FORD, was riding high on the wave of change. President Moi's trusted friends started to forsake him. One by one, they left. But it was the resignation of Mwai Kibaki, the then Minister for Health, on Christmas Day in 1991 that sent shockwaves across the country.
I have resigned from the government, and that a detailed statement will be issued tomorrow.
He was to be joined by then powerful politicians, mainly from the central Kenya region, to form the Democratic Party, DP.
Now forward!
But it was FORD that provided the real challenge. It attracted hundreds of thousands of supporters, and for a while it looked set to wrest power from Moi. These emerging developments dominated discussions among the five friends. KANU was staring at defeat, and the position of these five young men, most of them sons of political figures in the society, was at stake. They agreed to an idea: a youth league that will champion KANU's re-election, a replica of UK's Labour Party youth movement. They named the movement KANU National Youth Congress.
You know, they knew of one party, one government, one nation. For them, the president was their president. The party was their government.
That afternoon, 32-year-old Cyrus Jirongo, who was a mutual friend, was proposed to lead the new movement.
The lobby group I led in 92 was just 23 young men, business people. One thing is for you to qualify, you must have your own money. It was not a begging team. There are people who are in business. We were not a huge team as people would want to imagine. We were only 23 of us.
KANU was in problems and the opposition was getting stronger. And, they needed an organization of young people like us to make sure that we help the party.
Word about the new outfit spread quickly, and in the meeting that followed, sons of top political leaders were in attendance. They included President Moi's children, Gideon, Jonathan and June, as well as Kiprono Kitoni, their cousin and son of then Maendeleo ya Wanawake chairlady, Zipporah Kitoni. It was at this meeting that YK92 was born.
As young people and persons from families that were in KANU, what we used to call traditionally KANU communities, said, no, we can't let Mzee be embarrassed like this.
I joined YK92 by virtue of I was the personal assistant to P-Ward. And when we heard that there was meetings here and there, then I requested that maybe I can join them. And that is when I approached Jirongo, and he told me, come, and they put for me a position.
At the time, I was teaching. I was a lecturer in Utalii College. And I was given a call by a friend who was at the secretariat. He told me, Patrick, it is important that you come, we meet, and there is a movement that we are coming up with. So I went to the office at KICC, and I found a guy called Olympio Luceno, who works in Sudan, in Dubai currently. And there was also another young man called William Ruto, who happens to be our deputy president today. And they welcomed me, and they told me they are aware that I was a lecturer in Utalii, and they told me they had set up structures to group support. So I was identified as someone who could be in that team to consolidate support from tertiary institutions.
At this time, the fabric that held the opposition together had started to tear.
Na hiyo ndio chitaka letu.
Apart from DP eating into the opposition bloc, Ford, the once indomitable party that shook the nation, split into two. Ford Kenya, led by Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and Ford Asili, led by Kenneth Matiba. Franklin Bate was the Deputy State House Controller and Moi's speechwriter at the time YK92 was conceptualized.
President Moi didn't take chances. So he led his think tanks into a state of thinking, serious analyzing of situation, assessing situations. And immediately he asked, where are the young people? Then they became so handy. The Honorable Jirongo and his team came by. And they were told what was the wish of the president, and the president himself is the one who was telling them. They went back, and they came back with a modus operandi. And the modus operandi yielded YK92.
I would just loosely say we also had a kitchen cabinet. Even amongst the national officials, there are some members who are more national in terms of access than the others, yet they were on the same team. But I'll give credit to His Excellency's children. There was particularly the girl June. June was a main person with our team. Of course, there was Jonathan in the background. And what we realized, whatever we decide, the sentiments would be passed over to Cyrus Jirongo, and he had quite a good rapport with them. Within hours, he would guarantee us that I'm giving you an answer from Mose. That was initially. But with the time, it became him. He's the one who now had the direct access to His Excellency then.
They were a structured team. And they had a team, I now don't remember the number of the Central Committee, which was headed by Jirongo. That is a group that was meeting with President Moi on regular basis to brief him on the goings on in the countryside. In that structured manner, the key man was Cyrus Jirongo. That was the key man. That was the man who Moi could call even alone and tell him A, B, C, D about what to do with his team.
Late 1991, June Moi organized the initial meeting between the group and President Moi. The meeting took place at his home in Cabinet Gardens, Nairobi. YK92 was later officially launched on March 4th, 1992 at the Nyayo National Stadium. This movement introduced new dynamics to the 1992 election campaigns by mobilizing the youth vote.
We had a very short-term plan, and that plan was KANU win.
At this time, if I may say, and I dare say so, not many of KANU politicians were had the courage to stand for KANU. Not one of them. So it was only Moi talking KANU. When these young people now came in, they were a blessing to President Moi, because they were now courageous, brave to say KANU juu, jogoo.
Nafikiri walikuwa wanataka kufufua chama kabisa tena iwe na nguvu, na kwa kiasi walifanya.
YK92 carried out their purpose by heckling and intimidating the opposition during the political gatherings and vote buying. They warned opposition chiefs against campaigning in the rural areas of Kenya, or what they called KANU zones.
When you are having a competitor, you try all means to outwing the other. So I could say, as much as they had liberty to campaign everywhere, We made sure that our strongholds, we weakened them by all means. Yes, and we strategically put our supporters on the ground so that it is coming from the ground. But the ideas were really from our head office, which is the YK92 head office. So we send people and then they assemble people and we tell them, this is what you are going to do.
So they will disrupt?
Yeah, that is normal.
They were working for a boss. And that boss belonged to a party known as KANU. And they were bought into the idea of KANU retaining power. Naturally, therefore, they were standing up against any other person who would want to interfere with that wish, with that arrangement.
Mwai Kibaki, a former vice president to Daniel Arap Moi, was seeking to unseat his now former boss. But when the DP leader ventured into KANU's heartlands, he encountered organized harassment. An important rally in Kapsabet, scheduled for September 3rd, was cancelled at short notice by the district commissioner. Early September, after a successful tour of Uasin Gishu, Kibaki had been stopped from entering Moi's Bridge by pro-KANU youth, armed with machetes and arrows. But the most serious incident occurred on Sunday 13th September. The DP leader was ambushed at Sotik in Kericho district, where he had stopped to greet local residents. A crowd of youth had attacked, overturning one car and smashing two others, forcing Kibaki's security men to form a ring around the former VP with stones raining down on the vehicles. The invective flowed fast and furious when Kibaki encountered a mob in Limuru. He had come to welcome the recruitment of the immediate former MP. Kibaki charged that this was an orchestration of the YK92, which was instilling a culture of violence.
In 1992, KANU employed a youth wing called YK92. What do you remember about this group?
I remember when really the YK92 came into the fore, having meetings, let's say in Kamukunji, became a big problem. Initially, you could call a meeting in Kamukunji, your only problem was the police. But come YK92, you had also to mobilize yourself in preparation for violence coming from, the leadership or organized with the leadership of YK92.
Well, I can never forget that name, YK92, because they were the ones used by the regime, the government of the day, led by Moi, to suppress freedom of expression, freedom of whatever. And YK92 is but one of the instruments that Moi used to suppress what we were fighting for.
Ours was to campaign for Moi, and that's it. Okay. And that's what we did.
Intimidation, the part of intimidation.
What capacity would a businessman have to intimidate? Those who intimidate have other capacities other than being purely a businessman. I know for sure there are some statements that would be released, and we are not aware of those statements. There is one statement that was released insulting the then Electoral Commission chair, Cyrus Jirongo. We were not aware totally. And when you looked at the facts, because that is it had been faxed to the media stations, it had no address. When we pushed harder, it came out that the statement had been issued by the then Deputy Controller of State House, Franklin Bett. So there are many people who acted, did their own mischievous things, and used the name Youth for KANU 92 as a cover.
we were targeting, first of all, to consolidate KANU areas, because we needed to give them courage that the party still existed and we were going somewhere.
Yes.
So when we went to our strongholds, so that we can then now move out and see if we can get 1 or 2 votes from there, these overzealous politicians now started using Youth for KANU 92, printing their own T-shirts, offering their own small supporters in the villages, and creating chaos.
My friend, what is underhand deals in politics? Even as you're asking me those questions today, what is going on in America, in the United States, between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? What's going on? Underhand deals. So what am I saying? It cannot be blamed on KANU alone that they propagated propaganda. Propaganda is part of politics. It is part and parcel of it. That I can confirm. Without propaganda, you may not win an election. Anywhere in the world, anywhere, name it, anywhere in the world.
So the YK did it very well?
Yes, they did very well.
And propaganda was played hard.
We approached also the stalwarts, particularly the senior Odinga, and that was actually the pecan of the opposition, or the father of the opposition. So we managed to convince him, and at one point even we arranged for a one-on-one meeting with the president. And of course, when we discussed with him, he accepted that he will want to meet the president, but in secrecy. So we arranged when the president was in Eldoret. Then we were supposed to we hired an helicopter from Wilson Airport. So while we were arranging now to airlift him, I think the word leaked. And somebody leaked it to the press that Odinga was going to meet the president. So when that word leaked, then he rescinded the invitation, and of course it worked, because at one point now the opposition, when they were sitting, they were accusing one another. So you wanted to go and eat ugali and what have you.
Kigen says they even managed to put some of the opposition leaders on their payroll.
The only person we didn't manage to get was Raila Odinga. But the rest of the people, Shukugu, Wamalwa, and quite a number of others who are not very senior, to be part of our agents inside there, because we were handling and we were supporting them. And in fact, even Wamalwa, we were paying his house. And we moved him to a very good place, and we told him to be settled so that now when he's talking, he's feeding us in the evening, whatever it is going on. At that point also, we were using the same information we are getting that they were planning to now come out into the air.
Why did you fail to get Raila Odinga?
He was a little bit cunning.
More than 20 years after the 1992 elections, the story of YK92 is still material, as one of its members, William Samoei Arap Ruto, is Kenya's deputy president. Having campaigned and won the presidency alongside President Uhuru Kenyatta on a Jubilee coalition ticket in 2013. Today, the DP and Jirongo are political foes and have been engaged in a political spat occasioned by the assassination of businessman Jacob Juma.
Unajua, my brother Jirongo saa zingine anakasirika na mimi kwa sababu zamani nilikuwa mti yake ya mkono. Sasa anakasirika na mimi sasa, anaona huyu ambaye alikuwa mtu yangu ya mkono alipitia wapi hapa mpaka aka. Lakini unajua my friend, ni kujipanga na nilikwambia. I told you. Mimi sikatai, nilikuwa mtu yako ya mkono, lakini sasa unanikasirikia ya nini? Na sasa hii ni maneno ya Mungu.
Would you be jealous for William Ruto, you yourself? Would you want to go to Hague, go through the problems he's gone through? My thinking about leadership is totally different. His thinking is totally different. And leadership is about honor. You work hard to get honor.
Aged 25, Ruto was fresh from the university when he was drafted into the YK team.
When Ruto was just a young man who I think he had not even finished the university. And I think along the way he cleared within the year. So he went to Kanu office where Julia was, and he managed to stick around there. And then all of a sudden, he was now, once in a while, he was joining the meetings of Kanu, youth for Kanu, and so on. But he was just somebody. Yeah, he had no job, he had nothing. He was just a student who was looking for a job.
They were the University of Nairobi sub-branch. You know, at that time we had universities sub-branches, and they were brought to Kanu headquarters by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Mbithi, at that time, and we had a very good working relationship with university sub-branches, and he was part of that sub-branch, and he came to our office to also do what you say today, internship.
And a very good organizer. He was in the secretariat. He did most of the paperwork. You know, most of the YK people preferred to be out there in the field. Before we established his eloquence in addressing national rallies or any rally outside, he was a very focused office person. In the initial stages, because we are running out of time, we split. We had so many rallies to address at any one time in the whole country. I remember there was a group that went to Eldama Ravine, and that group was given His Excellency the Deputy President as a principal speaker. And some people were even skeptical about whether he could manage it. He was a very quiet, polished, soft man. But when he got the microphone in Ravine, I mean, we were all surprised about his prowess, his oratory skills, and his capacity to captivate the crowd, both in his local language and also in Kiswahili. You rarely find people from his region who talk in that kind of Kiswahili. He has a mastery of that. And then his English was perfect, thanks to his academic background and exposure. We realized this man must always be in the rallies, and particularly when you're in that territory where the dialect, local dialect, was key.
The group is alleged to have played role of a conduit by the Moi regime to siphon public money. Kanu devised multiple strategies to win the election. One was to print money to buy voters.
Issues of corruption and issues of governance, they were very much part of the political discussion at that time. And we were trying to mobilize the country around those issues and to ensure that the imperial rule under the Kanu as a national party and the only party at the time was brought to an end. And then comes YK92, and the thing that they were selling was money. They had loads of cash, mobilized young people on the basis of what they were offering at any one meeting, or trying to buy, leaders, sometimes not even youth leaders, but even other people in the leadership. But the currency was not ideas. It was just trading on cash. Okay. And I think it has had an impact in our politics. And money becomes such an important factor in modern day Kenya politics.
It's believed businessman Kamlesh Patni donated over 11.2 billion shillings through his company, Goldenback International. The other source of funding was the National Social Security Fund, NSSF. The NSSF will use money invested by workers to buy property at inflated prices, especially those previously owned by politicians.
Unajua ukiwa na pesa hutaki kusema ati ulipewa na fulani au nini. Sijui sana. Lakini ilitoka humu nchi ya Kenya. Kenya ni za hapa, pesa hizo ni za hapa.
Most of the money that we're using were from well-wishers, people who love the party. But quite a big chunk was from Jirongo. Unfortunately, when he put most of his monies in the game, people started saying that it was the state giving him the money. He was using his own money. In fact, it is very painful sometimes when you look at it or sit with him and listen to him and know exactly what he did to support the system at the time.
We never got any single cent from the Kenyan government or from any parastatal at all. If you have any, show me. But we didn't get.
It's likely that they were doing well anyway, in whatever it is that they've been doing. Likely. But the money being spent was not their money. And being political operatives, they probably were making more money doing that than spending it. Whether it's money in form of cash or in form of assets. Some of them acquired a lot of assets in the process in doing that. So the money was not theirs.
The question that we made a lot of properties, that's not true. This property of mine, which I see some newspapers writing whatever they are writing, I purchased it before YK92, 1990, 1991. So most of us were established, totally established. So it's not true. We never got any money from the Kenyan government.
Okay. In an election, somebody has got to get money from some source. I don't know how the money was coordinated. I don't want to indulge in an issue which I am not proficient. But we had resources which were channeled to YK92 and other persons who were determined for the Kanu cause.
Many people say that YK92, a group that you led, was used as a conduit by the then government to siphon public money. Is that true?
On the issues of money, everybody knows that the money that flooded the market came from Goldenback. And thank God I'm living today. The attempted assassination at that time, had I died, people would have said Jirongo was part of Goldenback. Some people used to say I have 20 wives, 8 wives. Create an explanation for the looting that went on through Goldenback. Okay. According to documentation which Paul Mite came up with at one time, 158 billion was looted through Goldenback. An election in 1992 did not cost 2 billion shillings, as much as it was high expenditure. The YK story is a scapegoat. We came in, did a clinical job, finished what we wanted to finish, and moved on.
There's no way you can get funding from a parastatal if you're not doing business with them. So we never at all did any business as an organization. If there was an individual who did, that's an individual, but as an organization, Enoch, we never did any business with government. We didn't have any association with Goldenback at all.
On November 12, 1992, the Daily Nation unearthed how NSSF had purchased 2 properties at 1.2 billion shillings from Sololo Outlets, a company associated with Cyrus Jirongo. The estimated value of the properties at the time was 66 million shillings. The remaining 1.13 billion shillings went to Kanu's campaign kitty.
Sololo Outlets Limited built Hazina Estate. You can go there and see it. 560 housing units. At that time, if you had sold a unit at 3 million shillings, it would have been 1.8 billion. Now, The agreed price for that estate was 1.2 billion. Only 960 million was paid. Now, divide that by 560,000 units. And that's not the only estate I did. I did Saika Estate, I did Kemri Estate, and I was already in business, doing business. If somebody told me that you are given land in South B for free, given money for free to build, it would not make sense. And Hazin Estate, my borrowing was 300 million from Post Bank. If you're in business and you cannot go to a bank and borrow money and do work, then I'll show you the thief. Okay. Yeah, otherwise, what is the source of capital?
We must separate what was going on in each individual's business arrangements and what was going on with YK. We never got any funding. So if, for example, somebody approached a senior politician and said, give me this contract. If I get this contract, I will earn 2 million shillings. From that 2 million, I'll fuel YK vehicles with 50,000. Those were probably arrangements that were never mentioned to us, and we never got to know them.
As the country geared towards the 1992 elections, YK92 was on its deathbed as a result of an onslaught against it by KANU's old guard. November 1992, Chairman Cyrus Jirongo suspended the group's treasurer Sam Nyamweya for interfering in KANU nominations in Kisii district, and Vice Chairman Gerald Bomet for seeking the Baringo South parliamentary seat, an end product of an internal battle that had heavily affected the activities of YK92.
There are stories that you had a friction between yourself and the treasurer and even your vice chairman. What brought about that?
We are merely a lobby group campaigning for the head of state. And one of the issues was that if you belong to the 23, you're not going to seek a political seat. And I think one of us decided he wants to seek a political seat, and we had to release him and ensure that he's not part of us. The only person who remained part of us, and actually we went and asked for permission for him to stand, was Leshore. But ours was to campaign for Moi, and that's it.
There was never an agreement that nobody should vie. What we said was that we were not going to have politicians involved with the affairs of Youth for KANU 92, so that we cannot tarnish our image or be less neutral than we desired to be. I was amongst the people who stood. In my opinion, 1 month, 2 months before the elections, we believed KANU was doing well. So our short-term agenda had been met.
You see, Jirongo was very passionate to the election, and he was determined to deliver the seat. Now, and there was no way Saitoti, Biward, and Kamotos and so on to convince Jirongo otherwise. So the only way was Saitoti used Nyamweya to get information and also try to wreck or create confusion within YK. And I think he succeeded.
Senior politicians in KANU who had not abandoned ship felt threatened because we came in like a storm and took their positions of influence and decision making, particularly in regard to campaigns. So they decided quietly to start backing factions within the YK team.
But the problem is, much as they were murmuring, much as they were complaining, they were doing nothing to advance the cause of KANU to win the elections. As far as I'm concerned, I encouraged the YK92 because they were doing what I wanted as the coordinator in the national office.
Mwanasiasa lazima awe chonjo kila mara. Kwa hivyo kila mtu, hata mimi, hata wao, walitafuta mbinu za kukinga na kushikilia viti vyao viwe imara na virudi tena.
There was this accusation that Cyrus said that the Honorable Saitoti at the time and a group of other people in the Kanu received monies to have toxic waste dumped somewhere in the northeastern province. And that didn't go down well. Nobody came to authenticate it, but we could say that was politics. But the fact that he was with Nyamweya, and we knew he was his protege, and the fact that it's Cyrus who said it, that war escalated. That war ran out of control. It was no longer their wars. The wars now became super wars.
Lakini Saitoti alikuwa karibu peke yake. Mimi wengine kama mimi na nilikuwa karibu, maana natoka katika area yake Masaini, lakini sikumuunga mkono kwa hiyo.
Even though Moi rescinded Jirongo's call, a seed of disunity had already been sown. Two factions later emerged, one led by Jirongo and the other by Nyamweya. But the group held on long enough to assist Kanu and Moi win the first multiparty elections against a divided opposition.
Now it is up to the government to see how the country runs.
I give credit to YK92. No matter how they did it, no matter the stories said about them, I give them credit because it was won by Kanu. I have heard people say the election was stolen. Well, I was in charge of the national office. I don't remember, and I did not do any plan. I did not engage myself in any arrangement to steal by force, by paying people to steal election. I did not do that.
And after clinching power again, President Moi disbanded the group.
You cannot allow two bulls in the same boma, in the same compound. This YK92 had established a line of authority, and that line was heading towards the youth mainly. Now, that would be a challenge in terms of administration, because they would be voicing very strongly their views through that particular figurehead. And we were seeing that as kind of very disruptive in terms of fixing up the economy or managing the economy. So that was the main reason. So you had to do away with them and again dissipate them.
Alivunja kwa njia yake mwenyewe na hakutaka labda mambo mengi ya ndani ya YK ijulikane.
I wanted a younger generation to take over after Moi. We actually had a sitting and agreed that Musalia was going to be his deputy president. The only thing that let Musalia down, he was underage. He was below 35 at that time. And the old constitution required that you should at least be 35 years for you to be a president or deputy president. But our scheme was very simple, that a younger generation takes over power after Moi. And that is a true position, and that's what we had agreed on with the retired President Moi. And of course, that creates a lot of enemies. The then occupant of the seat was the late George Saitoti. Yes. You do not expect him, with the Biwott and others, to have taken that lightly. And it depended on where you aligned. Okay. If Nyamweya was aligned to Saitoti, then you would not expect him to have been very happy with me.
That is neither here nor there. Our organization was working with everybody so long as that person was in Kanu. So we started from the President Moi and his people. Saitoti was the vice president then. So if he was the vice president, there's no way that we could not have worked with him. So I personally worked with everybody, from the president to everybody.
The tussle between YK92 and the old guard will see the young Turks miss out on some of the promises Moi had made.
Moi had promised us that after the election is going to support us. Maybe at that time there was parastotals which were being sold. At least the whole 40 of us were going to form one company, and maybe he supports us to buy one, and then we run us or whatever, and then he appoints some of us and so on. So there was a lot of promises. Even when we finished the election, he promised us that maybe each of us, he can support us to start life with 5 million, of which we wrote, and it was taken to State House. The following day, we heard in Nakuru that we have been disbanded, and we don't know where those proposals went to, including the company which we had formed to buy one of the parastotals.
You don't blame Moi too much for that, because they were trying to take advantage of a particular situation, and Moi knew it. Moi is a man who had a habit, when he's finished with you, he would use some unflattering language to dismiss you.
But the group never died. It resurfaced in the periphery after Moi declared that he would be honoring the second-term cap and would retire in the 2002 elections.
Wakati wa kustaafu kwangu umefika baada ya uchaguzi huu.
Karibu baba. Hapa kwako. Karibu karibu.
The so-called young turks became more proactive after Moi maintained he was passing the baton to a younger generation. Cyrus Jirongo and William Ruto had made strides into KANU's inner circle.
We have no history of being losers. We shall deliver. Na tunaangalia yeye uso yake, tunaangalia macho yake vizuri sana. Tunataka atumie sign yoyote kuonyesha ni direction gani, and will be in full combat gear.
Elders katika bunge, kila mmoja wao akiwa mwanasiasa anasema mimi niko na vijana.
And when Moi chose Uhuru Kenyatta, they were determined to deliver the seat despite the backlash KANU received after Moi had picked the son of Jomo as KANU's flag bearer for the 2002 presidential polls. KANU would badly lose to a united opposition under the leadership of Emilio Mwai Kibaki.
Now, when Moi again saw the return of 91-92 during the repeal of the Section 2A, now coming back to haunt the young man who is now Uhuru. Now he called some of us to State House Nakuru, and he discussed with us how can we regroup as former YK and try to help Uhuru Kenyatta. So I called the first meeting, everybody came. When I sold the idea, it was a tough moment for me to really relay that message, because people were bitter about what had happened in 92. So people felt that we could not, unless Mzee Moi asked for forgiveness. Moi was very annoyed and said, go ahead and do whatever, form any whatever, forget about the former YK 92. So I came back and I called another meeting. I conveyed the message that we form whether there is the former YK or not. And we called upon the former YK 92 branches to turn themselves into a KAG, KANU Action Group team.
Of course, we meant to deliver, but you remember the Uhuru candidature was met with a lot of resistance from within KANU. Now, if you're in a house that is divided, a house that is fighting, it doesn't matter how well you calculate, how well you want to execute the program that you have, it will not stand. And essentially, Uhuru didn't make it, basically because there was serious internal conflict within KANU.
Indeed, the group propelled from anonymity politicians like Deputy President William Ruto and Cyrus Jirongo to the national grid.
If you want to talk about the YK story, you can never finish. That is why so many years down the line, it is still hot news. people still talk about YK, because the mystery has never been solved.
Perhaps undisclosed to many, a good number of YK92 members occupy influential positions in the country's political, business and academic arena today. William Ruto rose from the insignificant YK92 secretariat position to win the Eldoret North parliamentary position in 1997 and eventually worked his way up the political ladder. Jirongo served as a cabinet minister in the Moi regime. Nyamweya went to the football management.
No, it's not Jeshi la Mzee. It's just using reasonable force. When someone arranges youth on this side to shout, I also had mine on this side to shout back.
Patrick Musumba, Gerald Bomet and others proceeded to grow their fortunes in business. Enoch Sikolia, NTV, Sons of Fortune.